Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping right into one of the biggest, debates in all of sociology. It's this fundamental battle over how we should even study society in the first place. So here's the fundamental challenge, right? How can we study human society scientifically? I mean, are people just like chemicals in a test tube where you can measure and predict every reaction? Or is studying human life something completely different? This one question basically splits the whole discipline right down the middle. And here are the two sides of that split. On one side, you've got this goal of discovering objective, measurable social facts, the hard data of society. And on the other, the whole aim is to interpret the subjective meanings and experiences that really give our social world its life. Now, these two competing visions actually have names. We call them positivism and interpretivism. Think of them like rival teams in the World Cup of sociology, each with a totally different game plan for understanding how society works. Okay, and this table just lays it all out perfectly. You've got the positivists, who treat society like it's a natural science. They're all about quantitative data, that's numbers, to find these reliable, objective patterns. Then you have the interpretivists, who see a much more subjective world. They use qualitative data, we're talking words, experiences, to really get at the valid personal meanings that people create. For positivists, these social facts are kind of a holy grail. They believe that things like social class or the crime rate are real, external forces that can be observed and measured scientifically, almost like a physicist measures gravity. They exist completely outside of us. And this just brilliantly illustrates the philosophical heart of the whole debate. You see, positivists tend to view us as puppets, being pushed and pulled by these powerful social forces. But interpretivists, they see us as the architects, actively building our social world through every choice and interaction we make. Okay, so let's say you're a positivist. You want to measure these social facts and find those cause and effect laws. What tools are you actually going to use? What's in your toolkit? Well, the positivist's toolkit is absolutely packed with methods designed for one thing: gathering numerical or quantitative data. They love things like huge questionnaires and official statistics because they're just really efficient ways to collect standardized data from a big representative sample of people. All right, now let's do something fun. Let's put one of these methods, the lab experiment, on trial and look at its strengths and weaknesses through the eyes of both of our rival teams. For a positivist, the lab experiment is the absolute gold standard. I mean, it's the best way to isolate variables and prove that A causes B. But for an interpretivist, oh boy, it's a deeply, deeply flawed way to study actual human beings. The advantages are pretty clear, right? You get high reliability because the whole process is standardized and easy to repeat, and you have that precise control over variables. But the limitations are massive. The artificial setting gives you low validity, which means the results might not reflect how people act in the real world at all. And then you have the big one, the Hawthorne effect. This is an absolute killer for social experiments. If people know they're being watched, they might change how they act, not because of what you're testing, but simply because you're observing them. And that just completely undermines the validity of your findings. And this gets to the very core of the interpretivist critique. Humans aren't passive objects like rocks or chemicals. We're conscious, thinking beings who react to the world around us, and that includes reacting to the sociologist who's trying to study us. So, why does all this theory really matter? Well, if you happen to be an A-level sociology student, this whole debate is the absolute key to acing those really tricky methods and context questions. Take a look at this typical AQA exam question. To answer this well, you can't just list some generic points. No way. You have to apply this whole positivist versus interpretivist debate directly to the specific topic of family influence on education. So here's the formula. It's pretty straightforward. First, you talk about the positivist strengths. Things like structured interviews, being really reliable, how you can get a huge sample and make easy comparisons. But then you've got to hit them with the interpretivist limitations, how they can lack validity, how they're just so inflexible, and how they really struggle to capture the true meaning of something as complex as family life. For example, a really top-level evaluative point would be something just like this. You could argue that in a formal interview, especially on a sensitive topic like parenting, people might just give the answers they think the researcher wants to hear, instead of the actual truth. See? That shows you're thinking like a real sociologist.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Let's try to bring it all together for one final crucial point.
The crucial point is this: choosing a quantitative method, like a questionnaire, over a qualitative one, like participant observation, isn't just a practical choice, it's a theoretical statement. It reveals your fundamental assumptions about what social reality even is. And that leaves us with this final driving question. Quantitative data, numbers, can give us incredible insight into the patterns and correlations in our society. But can numbers ever truly explain the meanings, the motives, and the emotions that drive human behavior? That right there is the great debate that keeps sociology so vital and so alive.